Hello, this is Dr. Harrison, and I'm coming to you from my cryptic casa somewhere down in Bristol, Virginia. This week we're looking at the ancient religions of Iran and Iraq. And this is important because we will see that many of the religions that we study this week, or in this class, actually come from some of these ancient beliefs. Very fertile ground. For instance, the Aryan people of Iran move into what is present-day India, and they bring with them the Vedas, and it are these Vedas that become the religion of the Hindus, which becomes the religion of the Buddhists, which leads to the religion of the Jainis and the Sikhs. So we see how that had a great influence on them. But also in these ancient languages and ancient people, we find a gentleman from Sumer in Iraq who leaves his nation, believes in just one God. His name was Abraham. He goes westward toward Palestine, and he becomes the father of three great religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Now they're called the great religions not because they're better than anyone, but because they're larger than anyone. Those are the largest religions in the world, particularly Christianity and Islam. Now these religions were polytheistic. They believed in many gods. They were agricultural, and all of this is sort of to be understood since it was an agricultural time during this time. And they controlled all the important events of life. For instance, rain and famine, earthquakes, all of these things came from the gods. And also, most importantly, fertility. And so what happens is that human sexuality becomes intertwined with religious practices, which leads to some pretty awful and disgusting type of religious rites that include counting puppies. Now, there's one very important story that comes out of here that is very, very similar to the flood story of the Old Testament. What came first, we don't know. But it's called the story of Gilgamesh. And in Gilgamesh, a man goes on a journey to find eternal life. And so as we look at these stories, we see the foundation of all of these great religions. Now there's actually one religion that is still practiced today that comes out of this, still practiced in mostly Iran today. It's called Zoroastrianism. And Zoroastrianism believes in a dualistic world of good and evil, darkness and light. And many people believe that when the Jewish people were in exile, that they came under the influence of Zoroastrianism and brought it back to Judaism when they came back to Israel in the 5th century. Sort of a stretch, but some people believe that. They also go on to believe that Christianity is very heavily influenced by Zoroastrianism. Again, there are some scholars that believe this, but it's a bit of a stretch to try to make that connection there. Interestingly, the lead singer, former lead singer, before he died 10 years ago, Freddie Mercury of the rock band Queen, was a practicing Zoroastrianist. He was from Iran and continued that. Now Zoroastrianism is heavily persecuted today by the nation of Iran and its Islamic leaders. But it's still practiced, not only in Iran but in a few other places as well. Their important god was Zarathustra. And Zarathustra is the god that Friedrich Nietzsche, the atheist German philosopher of the 19th century, spoke to and discussed the Superman that was coming that would take upon himself his own responsibility, and there would be no need for God any longer. And he does this in the book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Now, many people believe that these nations had a very heavy influence on the religious practices of today. Others believe that it was just a city-state beliefs, but it's interesting to look at because you do see those connections. So this week, as you're reading through this chapter, one of the things you'll want to think about as you read the stories, what is their absolute? What is the end game for these religions? Are human beings, or the people, are they powerful in the religions, or are they weak in the religions? That's another thing that's very important. And finally, you'll want to ask yourself, what part does death play in the religion itself. That's very important as well. So I hope you enjoyed these stories. Remember the story of Gilgamesh? In that story, there is a quest, and the quest is not completed. The man does not obtain eternal life for his friends. So keep that in mind. That could be important at some point during this week. Now, I hope you all have a great week. Remember this bit of wisdom from my hometown of Lexington, Georgia. Some politicians would rather climb a tall pine tree and tell a lie than just stay on the ground and tell the truth. Until next week.